Hello, music lovers. My name is Carter, and welcome back to Recording Records. Today, we're reviewing the new album by Sabrina Carpenter, Short and Sweet. Now, before we get into the album, I want to go over some of Sabrina's dating history. If you already know all of this, feel free to use a chapter feature or skip in the video. I might include a time mark to skip to. If you already know this, feel free to skip that. But this is something I kind of want to talk about before I do the review. Now, Sabrina Carpenter, from my understanding from research for the video, because I don't follow her or anything, so I'm not sure, but from my understanding, she doesn't like publicize her dating life or anything. She tries, I guess, keep it private, but her dating life most definitely has not stayed private, with fans and paparazzi doing whatever they can do to get the scoop on her dating life. Speculation has always run rampant. This really began when sometime between 2020 to 2021, Disney star Joshua Bassett, ex of former co-star Olivia Rodrigo, had began either dating Sabrina or they were at least hanging out very closely. This led to Olivia making songs suspected to be about Joshua Bassett, such as Driver's License, which include lyrics like, "And you're probably with that blonde girl who always made me doubt," which is assumed to be about Sabrina Carpenter. Sabrina herself has written songs like Skin or Because I Like the Boy, which is also believed to be about her and Joshua Bassett and Olivia Rodrigo. And so from my understanding, it doesn't seem that Sabrina or Olivia Rodrigo made public comments against each other, but it's suspected within their lyrics that there's hints as to what they really think about the situation. And so Sabrina by no means is new to commenting on her love life or the media surrounding it within her music. But as I said, the Joshua Bassett stuff was 2020 to 2021, but the speculation with him out the picture surrounding her love life hasn't really disappeared. People suspected that at some point she was dating actor Dylan O'Brien, and then it was suspected that she was dating Shawn Mendes. She's now rumored to be dating Barry Keoghan, who happens to appear in the music video for Please Please Please, a song off the album, and Shawn Mendes, later on after rumored to be dating Sabrina Carpenter, was rumored to be dating Camila Cabello sometime in 2023, but they now have broken up. And so that seems to be the up-to-date lore on Sabrina Carpenter's love life. But I wanted to get that out the picture because, little hint, it's sort of talked about within the album. Now to get into the album, Short and Sweet is Sabrina Carpenter's 6th studio album, which brings a very 21st century, 2020s pop style with infusions of rock, country, and R&B. The album has usages of 808s, but also has some songs that favor more acoustic arrangement, giving an element of diversity to the album. Most prominently, though, the album does have a very modern, upbeat style in tune with a lot of the modern girl pop with bubblegum elements and sort of gives a sweet sound. The real character for the album, though, comes with the themes. As discussed, Sabrina is not foreign to discussing her love life within her music, and this album is no different. The album opens up with a track, Taste, a track about Sabrina telling someone who is dating her ex, and this person happened to date this ex at a time prior to Sabrina. She is telling this ex that now, whatever she does with her boyfriend, who is Sabrina's ex, that she'll be tasting her. Not just in that maybe when her ex and her girlfriend kiss or something, they might share her saliva or whatever and like actually physically taste. But she's saying that the way that this ex exists is sort of a perpetuance of her influence upon him. She's sort of saying that this ex, as he exists now, is her craft. Going as far to say things like, "He's funny, now all his jokes hit different, guess who he learned that from?" Or, "I leave quite an impression, 5 feet to be exact." For that reason, with the song being about Sabrina singing about her ex dating someone that they had dated prior to dating Sabrina, people suspect the song to be about Shawn Mendes and Camila Cabello, who dated prior to Sabrina, and then it was rumored Sabrina and Shawn Mendes dated, and then it was rumored that Shawn Mendes got back with Camila Cabello. In the music video, the lady that gets with this ex is played by Jenna Ortega, who low-key, but not really, kind of looks like Camila Cabello, but not really, but like low-key they kind of do. But regardless, to get to like the song, the song has like an electric guitar, so you sort of would think maybe it has a rock sound, but not really. The song maintains a very poppy style, giving a very positive vibe to the track. You could expect with her singing about an ex, maybe it gets rocky and she gets angsty, but it maintains a very poppy style. instead of diving into that angsty sound, it gives this vibe that Sabrina is not bothered by her ex getting back with this girl. Instead, it's more like she doesn't care and kind of just wants to taunt this person. In the song, she sings la 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 at some point, which if you think about any time you've ever heard that noise, it's either someone mocking someone or pretending they're unbothered by a situation. And so the whole song sort of just feels like Sabrina saying she's unbothered by the situation and then just like mocking this person, which in the music video she's kind of low-key doing. The next track, Please Please Please, differently is suspected to be about her suspected boyfriend, Barry Keoghan. This carries on a guitar from the last track and adds a synth lead to give a bit of a different vibe. Rather than trying to come across as unbothered about a situation and having a feeling of being moved on and just like walking past a situation, the song invokes a more romantical vibe to the track where she is pleading with this guy not to mess things up like her exes might have. I like the usage of the lyric in this song, "If you don't want to cry to my music, don't make me hate you prolifically," and it really drives this idea home that, you know, if you mess things up, she's going to make a song about you, kind of like she has, you know, in the prior songs and in some of the future songs in the album. So when it comes to songs about exes, there are songs that sort of like break away from this careless style about her exes that we saw in Taste, with songs like Dumb and Poetic, which is a lot slower of a song and has a little more intimacy with the deep acoustic production. This song could be about Shawn Mendes or Joshua Bassett. I'm assuming it's Joshua Bassett since she talks about him reading self-help books, which is something that Olivia Rodrigo happens to reference in Enough For You. And Sabrina Carpenter also brings up that the ex does shrooms, which is something that Joshua Bassett reportedly had done before. But rather than, you know, this being like Taste where she's kind of just moving past it and making fun of the situation, Sabrina just makes fun of this dude the whole track. She doesn't like come across as, you know, I don't care about this ex, I'm not going to talk about him. She's just low-key just making fun of him. This is also done in other more acoustic-heavy songs like Sharpest Tool in the Shed, which is dedicated to how dumb and incapable of a serious relationship one of her exes was, or the following track, Coincidence, which continues on with talking about how incapable of a serious, dedicated relationship her ex was. And so these songs, more surrounded with more personalism within the lyrics, happen to have a more acoustic style because that gives room to more lyric-based songs because there's less attention drawn to the instruments and more attention drawn to her. There are two songs within this acoustic side that really do stand out though. The first is Slim Pickens, which imitates a country style to the song, really making it stick out from the rest of the album, with her giving some very heavily country-inspired vocal performances. This is a song about how the chances of finding a guy who satisfies both her physical wants and relationship wants is slim pickings, with her imitating a sort of Southern housewife's lifestyle, which really just exists as a massive diss on every ex that she's ever had, because it's like she's so perfect, you know, every guy would want this. She's like housewife cooking or whatever, all the guys want this, and she's sort of advertising herself, you know, to be so great, whereas the guys that can really meet this standard are slim pickings. The second song that really stands out is Lie to Girls, which up until about 50 seconds in, where a heavy bass comes in, it's very bedroom poppy. This is a track about how her ex, again, can't offer a serious, dedicated relationship. But women will lie to themselves that things are fine and tell themselves that things are fine when they really aren't with this guy. This seems to be a place that Sabrina has found herself in with this guy, and so the instrumentation offers itself to be a lot more intimate and personal, really driving home that point. And even with the 808 that's present and the eventual electronic percussion, the song mainly is founded upon that bedroom pop style, making it really, you know, have this level of intimacy or personalism. Now, to get into the flow of the album, the flow can at times be kind of shaky. This issue exists mostly because of these sprinkles, you know, these little sprinkles of acoustic tracks. The first time when I listened to the album, I got really out of it with Sharpest Tool to Coincidence, to where I was so out of it, I had to re-listen to the album. And once I re-listened to it, I was able to follow the vibe better. I think it was just a personal thing. And I'm not saying it's definitively going to get you out the album in the same way I'd say, Good For You to Enough For You and Sour, for example, might get you out the album because it's just such a vibe killer or as such a vibe switch. I don't think it's very dramatic and it's not going to get you out the album, but there's a chance that it could be an obstacle for some people. And there's also within the flow of the album the existence of slim pickings, which kind of just feels a bit out of place with the rest of the sound of the album just because it imitates a country style that's really kind of just a lot different. As far as composition of the album, I can understand that a listener might struggle to get into tracks like Sharpest Tool or struggle to get into a hip-hop influenced track like Good Graces if that's not sort of their thing and they're just coming for upbeat pop like Espresso or Please 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 or Taste. If that's really the sound they're looking for and you're not able to get into those other sounds, I can understand how that could be an issue for some people. As it relates to composition, there were a couple tracks that could have had a bit of productional changes done to them, although it's mostly nitpicks. Like, for example, there's a random 808 or kick that peaks right after the outro of the lyrical outro to Lie to Girls, and there were some vocal productions that I thought could have used a bit of work as a listener, although I'm not saying I could make something currently as great as that vocally produced, but there were some things which could have been changed maybe a bit. Also, the panning in I think it's Lie to Girls is just a bit kind of whack. I don't know. It's a bit strange, but it's not terrible enough, and it works to be fine if you're not paying attention to it. Also, this album is a bit on the shorter side, only being 35 minutes. When an album is like 35 minutes, 30 to 40 minutes, I'm usually expecting it to be super direct and distinct, like, Is a Sit by The Strokes, or In the Airplane Over the Sea by Neutral Milk Hotel, or An Evening with Silk Sonic by Bruno Mars and Anderson .Paak, but this album offers a lot of diversity, despite being so short, so there is a bit of a lack of a direct vibe and sound to the album, but I don't think the flow of the sound is intruded too much, and I do think it largely does work for the most part. As far as overall thoughts for the album, with the two massive singles that were Espresso and Please Please Please, which I'm sure we all heard whether we wanted to or not, the thought on my mind, and I'm sure many others, was, how would Sabrina and her production team surround these two singles? How would they build around it? How would they use this very strong foundation and create this big body of work? And to answer that, there were songs like Taste or Juno that both fit the two singles and were really good tracks simultaneously. And there were also tracks like Slim Pickings, which might not have fit as well, even though it's really not a knock on the track at all. It just is a bit sonically different. Or same thing could be said with Good Graces, although I really didn't have a struggle with hearing that after Please Please Please. It worked really well for me. So I think that was fine. But if you're if you're not looking for a hip-hop song, that might be, or hip-hop inspired song, I guess you'd say, that might be a bit of an issue for you. Still though, I don't think the album had any terrible songs. There were some tracks I might skip on future re-listens, but none of the songs were at a point where I feel like I have to skip them. I can get through listening to the album and really not have an issue just listening to it start to finish. Again, though, the album is a bit short, which might help with that, but, it's a shorter album. But I do like the themes in the album, and some of the vibes really hit well, with none of them really feeling too out of reach. They all feel like reachable vibes. And so I'm going to give this album an 8.5 out of 10. Maybe it can be argued to be an 8.75, and maybe it might be a bit of a harder argument. You can maybe move it down to an 8.25, but I feel like an 8.5 is adequate. In comparison with some of the other albums from this year, I can see this making an Album of the Year nomination and maybe somehow winning it just based off how big Espresso and Please 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 were. But I don't think it's as good as, Hit Me Hard and Soft, or a review I haven't recorded yet with Brat, or an album like The Rise and Fall of Midwestern Princess, which was made last year, but I'm pretty sure qualifies for Album of the Year award for a Grammy. Or another album I haven't reviewed yet, but we'll get it soon. I would say this album is barely better than the Tortured Poets Department. Although my love for that album doesn't even come from the music or the body of work, although I think it's really great, as much as it comes from the concept and the themes of that album. And then, of course, The Weeknd might drop this year, and he's already number 2 in the world, despite haven't dropped like an album since 2022, I think. And so if he drops this year, especially with, I think, Mike Dean's working with him, that could definitely take the nomination. We'll see if that drops, we'll definitely be there to review that. But I definitely enjoyed the album. I saw some pushback online for the album, but it seemed to be from people that sort of hate this sort of style of pop, people that hate Taylor Swift or similar veins of pop artists that have a very, feminine, girly pop or basic, if you want to call it that, song structure, which is just, I guess, a way of describing pop music that's meant to be playable, that's meant to be digestible, and meant to just be vibe heavy. If you don't, I've seen some people talking against this album, but it seems to be people that don't like that type of music. It seems to be they just don't fit the audience. I ended up talking with one of my subscribers and fans, Tara, who is a big Taylor Swift fan, about whether this album was better or worse than the Tortured Poets Department, because it's something I reviewed and I could get a bit of lens of both what I thought and sharing my thoughts with someone else. And we basically had the same take on the album. And so that was cool. My final rating ended up being in that same ballpark too that I thought immediately after I finished the album. And so I feel pretty strong about where I put it. Although, admittedly, this was one of my harder albums I've had to rate. I really listened to it like a lot, like maybe like 6-7 times in the span of one day. Really just like listening to it to really make sure I got all of my takes really exactly where I wanted them to be. Also, real quick, I'd like to apologize for calling Chappell Roan in my review of her album, The Rise and Fall of a Midwestern Princess. I literally went online and researched for 40 minutes trying to figure out how to say her name, and I went to websites and it said, oh, it's pronounced Chappell Roan. I went on this thread and it was it's pronounced Chappell Roan. And so I watched this YouTube video and they were like, it's pronounced Chappell Roan. And so I was like, okay, I'll run with it. Originally, I wasn't even going to say the word Chappell because I wasn't sure of how she pronounced it. But I was like, fine, I don't want to be rude and just call her Roan the whole video. So I'll call her Chappell Roan. I should have watched an interview. That's what I should have done. If I watched an interview, I would have seen someone talk to her and they would have called her Chappell Roan because they make sure to really get that right. And if they get that wrong, the artist usually will correct them. Next time, if that arises, I'll make sure to watch an interview if there is one. Again, my apologies for messing that up. But if you haven't seen that review, I'd recommend checking it out. It's a really good one. With that being said, though, thank you for checking out my channel. Thank you for watching till the end of this. If you're here, make sure to subscribe, like the video, or do whatever. But regardless, have a good day. God bless. Goodbye. Have a good day. Bye-bye.